Hi everyone, Dr. Elise Lasco, acupuncturist here. Welcome to the Postpartum Series, Part 4. And today I want to talk about breastfeeding. And I'm going to keep it relatively simple and talking about kind of just the beginning of breastfeeding, just all the most important things that you need to get started. I know and recognize it is much more nuanced than this, going on the journey myself, but this video is designed to be for anyone that is currently pregnant and preparing to breastfeed. Basically all the most important things or things that you should plan to have if you are planning to breastfeed, or if you're in the early postpartum phases and you're kind of feeling overwhelmed by it. I share some really just simple things to get you started. So before I get into the things that you need, and I say need because as a new mom, there are so many things that everyone will tell you that you need. And I'm going to try to simplify it as much as possible because in theory, you could, if you decide to exclusively breastfeed without pumping or using any other tools, you could just need your boob and your baby. So that's one thing if you wanted to keep it really simple. Before I dive in, I just want to share a little bit about my own breastfeeding journey and kind of those very early days, and because it may help you also to know what to expect. So while pregnant, there was a lot about whether or not to hand express colostrum. A lot of moms will say do it, some will say it doesn't matter. Midwives, care providers, it's a mixed bag. And so for anyone that doesn't know, colostrum is fluid that comes out of the breast. It's considered liquid gold. It is very, very valued early breast milk. And you can usually start to express it in pregnancy. They usually will not tell you to start hand expressing colostrum until 38 weeks because it does stimulate the nipples, which can also stimulate going into labor. So you don't want to promote early labor by doing it. So 38 weeks is usually the safest place to start. And I myself was on the fence about whether or not to hand express colostrum because I got a lot of mixed reviews. And I think that's what's really hard about breastfeeding in general, is that lactation consultants, midwives, OBs, different moms give you a lot of different feedback or suggestions around what to do for breastfeeding. And there's a lot of contradictory information out there. So I'm going to give you what felt true to me and why it was helpful. So I did decide to hand express colostrum. I bought what was called the Mom Cozy Colostrum Kit, and it came with some little vials, and I have a bunch of things out, but I did not have those out for me because they are in my freezer because I still have some left. But they're just little tubes, and they have a little tiny nipple on them. So if you do need them, the nice thing I think about hand expressing colostrum and having it ready to go is if your baby has difficulty with latching or any kind of issues early on, or God forbid they have to be in the NICU and you can't breastfeed right away, you have it ready to go. So that's why I decided to do it, because I knew I was planning for a home birth. And I wasn't really sure how my breastfeeding journey would go. I wasn't sure if I'd have to end up going to the hospital. So I did it, and I'm really happy that I did. I didn't get a ton, but I did it. I think I had maybe a kit. I think the Mom Cozy kit comes with like 6 to 8 vials, and I think I did use all of them. But I wasn't able to fill it up. I didn't pump. Some people will pump their colostrum. For me, I was really intimidated by my breast pump. So I may, if I do have another baby, I would probably try to pump because maybe I'd get a little bit more. But hand expression is literally just like squeezing the breast. There's videos on how to do it. And so I did that, and I just did it right into the little vial. And then I put them in my freezer, and I labeled them by date. And I did it, probably 6 or 8 times, starting at 38 weeks. And I would just get as much as I could from each breast. And again, I didn't get a lot, but the reason why I was so happy that I did it was because when my baby was born, the day of, he was having some breathing issues when he first came out. And my midwives encouraged me to not try to breastfeed right away because they were just trying to get his breathing regulated. And I don't remember who, maybe I remembered or my husband remembered, but he said, oh, we have colostrum in the freezer. And I said, let's get it out. We defrosted it. And so we just heated up some hot water. We set the little vial in there. And I was actually able to give my baby some colostrum. And it really actually helped him with his breathing. They were trying to get him all sectioned out. And then he was fine. And then he was able to latch and breastfeed pretty much right away after that. So that's why I felt it was helpful. Obviously, do your own research, talk to your care provider, your lactation consultant, because there's different feedback. And yeah, so my early days of breastfeeding. So, in the first couple days too, so you only have colostrum in the first couple days. That's why it's considered liquid gold. It is so good for their immunity. It's their very first bit of breast milk that comes out. I actually still have some in my freezer, so it's also really good to keep for like if they get sick later on. So yeah, the first couple of days, that's all you're getting, and I was able to latch my baby right away with the support of midwives. I also will say I had access to a lactation consultant in pregnancy that gave me a lot of information. I had taken some prenatal classes as well that talked about breastfeeding. So I had information, and also as a doula myself, I was familiar, but I still felt really overwhelmed by it. And I was given a lot of suggestions of things to get. So I had things on my registry. I had ordered some stuff, but I think breastfeeding is one of those things that even if you've supported with it before or people have told you, it's just one of those things that you don't know until you know. It's the same thing with giving birth. It's the same thing with having a newborn baby. Until you experience it yourself, you really just don't know. So my midwife told me, so after she left on that day, she said, usually, they usually come 24 hours after your baby's born, and then they come 2 to 3 days after, because that's when your milk comes in, and it can be an emotional day. And I was like, gosh, what does that mean? I didn't really know. And so sure enough, my baby was born Wednesday at midnight, Friday. So Friday midnight, technically early Saturday morning, my milk came in all of a sudden. We were trying to get down for bed. I don't know why we were up so late. I think maybe we were up for a feeding, and I had been doing colostrum, and it was going fine, going great, feeling super easy. And then we were up and changing, and then literally it was like I was feeding on my right side, and my milk let down fully on my left. And I remember how overwhelming it felt. And I didn't know what to do. And all of a sudden I had like beach balls. I know they still kind of look like beach balls, but they were like crazy. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And I remember getting really emotional. At that same moment when my milk came in, I also passed a clot. I cried. I was really overwhelmed. I actually called my midwife, because I remember her telling me, yeah, when your milk comes in, you might be really engorged and you might have to hand express first. But I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't actually exactly know how to hand express, even though I had done it with the colostrum. But once your milk's in, it's like a whole different feeling, like hand expression. Like your boobs feel really spongy. It's really it's a very strange feeling. So I called her and I told her what was happening. I was also concerned about the clot, and she said, oh no, you're fine. The clot was not big enough to be concerned about. But, and I was like, I don't know, I don't have the right bras, and blah, blah, blah. She's like, just get some extra towels. And she's like, and just feed your baby. And I was like, oh, right, because I had already been feeding him. And granted, I was very fortunate. I didn't have any issues with latching initially. He had been feeding for the last couple of days already. And so sure enough, he latched, and we started our feeding journey. And that's kind of how it's been since then. There's so much more to share, but I want to get into, before I dive too much more into breastfeeding, because this is more of like a 101 type video, I want to talk about the things that really helped me, especially in those first 6 weeks postpartum. Because in the first 6 weeks, you are like leaking milk all the time. Like you get out of the shower and it's just leaking, and it's really like, oh, what do I do? And so I have a little basket, and actually having little baskets like this with your breastfeeding supplies that you can easily move around the house is really nice. So as you can see, I'm in my kitchen. This is where I keep a lot of my stuff. And this basket goes back and forth to my breastfeeding cart that's in my bedroom. And one of the first things that I actually really loved is this is called the Boone Trove. It's a milk collector. And this is passive milk collection. And what I like specifically about the Trove, and actually my chiropractor told me about this, is that you can collect on one side while you're feeding on the other. And especially in those really early days, your milk is like letting down all the time. And so this, you can actually put it in your bra. And so in between when your baby's sleeping or not feeding, you can put it on and it'll just collect the milk so you're not like leaking everywhere. And then obviously I also have some of these Kindred Bravely nursing pads. These are great to have in between. So like when you're sleeping, because one thing I will say is this passive milk collector, I have another passive milk collector I will talk about. The Trove is kind of, you can't really sleep in it because you have to wear a bra. And I think that's another thing about breastfeeding in the beginning is you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to wear a bra forever because you're leaking so much. And for me, I didn't want to leak all over my bed and on my sheets. So anyways, but when my chiropractor told me to get this, and she told me about, yeah, you collect on one side, feed on the other. Still, it didn't really register to me what that really meant. And so I was so happy I had it, but it took me a couple days to figure it out. I remember in those that very first night when I was trying to figure out what to do because I was so engorged, and in the process of trying to feed my baby, I had the Haka. And my doula actually had recommended the Haka. And I remember Daniel was trying to help me and he just like suctioned it onto my breast and I screamed at him. I was like, that hurts, and I freaked out. So I do like the Haka. Some people will say you can collect a little bit with it while you feed your baby on the other side. For me, I thought it was really hard because my baby would kick this off my breast. And so then the milk would spill and then you lose the milk. Like it's just a whole thing. So for me, the Trove, and I still use the Trove when I'm feeding on one side, because I will sometimes get a heavy letdown while I'm feeding him on one side. And you collect up to 3 ounces of milk. So in those early days, I actually didn't pump at all for 4 weeks, but I had this to passively collect because I didn't pump until 4 weeks. And so I could collect it, like I said, in between or while I was feeding on one side. And I would just do the pitcher method. So I would pour into a bottle, and then this bottle would stay in the fridge. And then every time I would have a letdown, I would just pour it in. And because I didn't do a bottle until 4 weeks, I was just freezing all this milk into milk storage bags. So that's another thing I recommend having is some good milk storage bags. We have the Willow brand. Another thing is breastfeeding bras. That was something I was really overwhelmed and very caught up in the beginning was all my bras. And eventually I figured it out. I am currently wearing a Kindred Bravely pumping bra. So this has like the 2 clips so you can breastfeed in it or you can pump. The pump has little holes and you can stick the flanges in it or you can take it all the way down and breastfeed. This is a bra by Bodily. I like this one. It's just a simple nursing bra. It's really soft and really easy to clip and unclip. So I would recommend having a couple pumping bras for the beginning and a couple like this just to get you started. Just remember, you can always get things on Amazon or anywhere really easily, really quickly. Just get a few things to get you started until you get your rhythm and until you figure out what it is you really need. So, okay, so that's the Trove, the bra, the Haka. Some people really like it. I mean, you can hand pump with it. I've just always had a hard time. So it is not my favorite, but if my Trove is in the dishwasher and I'm having a letdown, I will put this on. Another thing why I like the Trove is it comes with some little plugs too, so that you can actually refrigerate these. So if you don't have time to dump your milk, you can just stick them in the fridge. Another aspect of passive milk collection that I really like is called the L.V cups. My good friend actually told me about these, and these are passive milk collectors as well. The difference between these and the Trove, that the Trove actually will suction a little bit, so it will like pull milk out. So it does promote your milk supply a little bit more. Some say it could cause you to overproduce. So if you're worried about that, you can just put the L.V cups in your bra. And I use these, I don't really use them anymore too much because I'm not letting down as much, and I really not even really using nursing pads anymore. I do let down a little bit here and there, but I'm kind of just like, whatever. So the L.V cups, you can just stick them in your bra and they will collect when you're having a letdown. So for me, these were really nice in the first 6 weeks when I would go out for appointments where maybe I wasn't going to breastfeed. Like I was just going for a short 1 or 2 hours and I knew I could breastfeed before and breastfeed after. And the milk will collect in there. So the same thing, you can just pour them into your bottle or whatever. Another thing that I highly recommend are the silverettes. These are nipple shields, and I never have had any issues with cracked nipples or anything, and I attribute it to having these silverettes. And also, this is a Golden Solve nipple butter made by my friend Dr. Morgan Zapalak, who's also an acupuncturist that has her postpartum kit. This was one of the things that I absolutely loved. It's just olive oil, calendula, beeswax, and vitamin E. And I really think I never had any issues so far, knock on wood. I am now almost 5 months postpartum and never had any issues with cracked nipples, dry or bleeding or anything like that. So I got in the really good habit of just wearing the silverettes between feeds. Sometimes I would sleep in them and just stick them in my bra or just around the house during the day. And then I got in the habit of putting on nipple butter almost after, either I'd put on nipple butter after every feed or I'd put the silverettes back on. Technically, I think you are not supposed to put nipple butter on and then put the silverettes on. These are kind of like self-cleansing, so you just have to like rinse them off, and it comes with like a little brush thing that you can wipe them with, and then this great little case. So those are kind of just like things to get you started. And then I also really love the My Breast Friend breastfeeding pillow. It has a little pocket, so I would stick my nipple butter in here, my silverettes as well, so I had them. And this goes just like around your waist. It has a little clippy thing on it. I clipped mine together. But I have 2 covers for this, but actually I would just get in the habit of putting my baby on this with a muslin cloth so I didn't have to change the cover so much, because you do leak a lot in those first couple weeks. So he just lay right here and feed on either side. It's honestly one of my favorite things from those first 6 weeks was him just like laying on the breastfeeding pillow, feeding, and then falling asleep. And I would just sit there for hours and just stare at him in awe. And honestly, this is one of my favorite things. I actually have 2 because I got one from my registry and a friend gave me hers. So I kept one in my bedroom, this one in my bedroom, and then I have another one that I keep in my living room. I don't really need this anymore because my baby is big enough now to kind of just sit next to me or on my lap and feed or on a small pillow. So I loved that. And then just a couple final things. Spectra. This is the pump that I started using right at 4 weeks. It's one of the best, I guess, so to speak, out there on the market that women really like right now. This is the cordless one. It's rechargeable, so you can move it around really easily. You don't have to be plugged in, and it comes with just like the regular phalanges. You do want to like measure your nipple to make sure you have the right size. You can see I have some little inserts in there for my appropriate size. And then you can just pump, obviously. This is my at-home pump. And then just a little hack that I didn't know about until I joined a mommy's group was that you can actually put these in the fridge in between feeds so you don't have to wash them every time. And so I just put them in a silicone bag. I put them in the fridge. I leave them in my fridge. I was washing them like once a day. Now it's kind of like every 2 or 3 days. And then I just stick all the pieces in the dishwasher. So that's my Spectra. I really like it. That's all I used in the very beginning, right at 4 weeks. And then now when I went back to work at almost 12 weeks postpartum, I decided to invest in a wearable pump. This is called the Eufy. I like the Eufy a lot. It is a little bit nuanced. It has a lot of pieces. It has an app that comes with it, but you also have to have the right size. I kind of just went with the smallest one that came with it. I'm kind of due to switch out my pump parts right now and get new ones, but this you just stick in your bra, you turn it on. The only issue with it is that it's kind of hard to see if it's perfectly lined up. You have to wear a tight pumping bra with it. And so sometimes it just gets misaligned or if you move around too much. But I am so glad I have this for being at work because As an acupuncturist, I'm in and out of rooms. Sometimes I would love to have a full hour to just pump and sit down, but people are in and out of our office. We don't have a private space to pump in. I have a kitchen, but there's nowhere to sit. So for me, I like having these because I can be in and out. If I need to run in with a patient while I'm pumping, I can. Typically, I try to do this while I'm eating lunch, and there may or may not be somebody in the clinic, but they can be. They're large, but they're a little bit more discreet than some of the other ones. And if you wear a flowy top, it's a little less noticeable. Or, as one of my friends said, it's like you can just not care and you can just go around, and it's fine. So, those are kind of just my introduction to my own breastfeeding journey. Like I said, it's gone well for me. I've been lucky. I've been fortunate to have really amazing lactation consultants and people in my circle that have helped me. And so if you have questions, please reach out. I am here for you. And this is just part 1 of breastfeeding, because there's a lot to it. But this is kind of just everything you need to get started. Just get the things, have them ready. And once your baby is born, lean on your lactation consultant, your care provider, mommy friends, or whoever you know in your circle, because it is different for everybody and everybody likes different tools. But these are some of the things that I loved that have been helping me on my journey, and I'm still learning and evolving, and everything's changing now here at 5 months. But that's what you need to get started in those first 6 weeks. Wishing you a wonderful day, and I will be back for more breastfeeding and postpartum journey tips coming soon.